Hey there guys, so today we're taking a look at High on Life running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now this game is currently right now running at the lowest in-game graphics settings but with the full 1080p resolution, and this is just the intro of the game. Now this is running at the stock 15 watt TDP. So this game just came out, it pretty much just hit the Game Pass, and I decided to load it up on here because I do really enjoy Justin Roiland's sense of humor, and it did seem like an interesting enough game to try out. Unfortunately, loading into it was very apparent that we were going to be having some pretty major problems. Now, I left the game pretty much in the main menu for around 10 to 15 minutes just because it was a DirectX 12 game, so you want all the shaders to be cached. So I let it do that, but unfortunately, we were still having some pretty major 1% low stutters throughout the entirety of the gaming experience. So in general, it was a pretty rough game to try to play, but we are, of course, at the stock 15 watt TDP. Once I used the balance preset with the AMD APU tuning utility, we went up to 22 watts sustained, and the performance improved dramatically, especially in the 1% lows. All of the stuttering was pretty much resolved at this point. Now, getting around a 30 FPS average isn't exactly going to be the greatest experience in all of this, but it is at least playable, especially with 1% lows in the 20 range. It is at least somewhat doable, though I would really only recommend playing like this if you're only going to be doing story mode with like no actual difficulty. I didn't realize that that's what story mode actually was. I kind of just hit story mode because it's like, yeah, I want to play the story. I thought it was like story mode or like challenge mode or something like that, and it wasn't until like I took literally no damage from anyone that I realized, oh, I've made a mistake. I will say though that at the very low settings, the game can look pretty rough in a lot of situations. It's not exactly the highest fidelity game in general, though at the higher settings it does look decent enough, especially since it's so stylized, but just in general it's not exactly the best looking game, and playing with the lowest settings like this doesn't do it any real favors. I could completely understand that maybe this FPS would be passable for you, but you just can't get past the visuals for a game that is mostly based off of just the story itself. And the thing that gave me the best level of performance was actually just dropping the resolution down to 720p. Once we go down to 720p and crank it up all the way to the performance mode in the AMD APU tuning utility, which is a bit overkill, but going all out here, you can see that we're finally able to actually get some pretty decent levels of performance. 1% lows that are comfortably above 30, with an average that is hovering around 60 enough that I think for the most part you really wouldn't have any real problems like this. Of course, the already low quality visuals don't get any favors done by going to such a low resolution, but again, the game is so heavily stylized that I don't think it should be too much of a problem, though it is one of those things where there will be a lot of objects that you'll look at that will look really basic with these lower graphics settings. It's usually just the assets around the world that kind of just take a pretty major hit visually speaking. In general though, it is passable enough, and I have played through about an hour and a half just on this system alone once I dropped things down and the FPS got to a level where it was reasonable. So I kept playing with these exact settings and it was decent enough. I don't want to show too much though, just because of the fact that I think you should actually play this game. I've really been enjoying it, but I'm a fan of Rick and Morty and I like Justin Roiland's sense of humor. So if you're a fan of that, this game pretty much is just a whole bunch of that. It's definitely not for everybody, but I personally enjoy it greatly, and I'm glad to see that a chip like this can actually play the game reasonably well. You're still gonna have moments of stutter here and there, but for the most part, anything involving actual gameplay will be decent enough. So you should definitely check this out, especially if you have access to the Xbox Game Pass. But anyways, I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.